tropical cyclone wind signal number 4 was raised over some parts of the Philippines as Typhoon Tino accelerated, affecting a total of 4,164,358 individuals across 8 regions. The typhoon damaged communications, transportation, and utilities infrastructure and brought about flooding and landslides in Mimaropa, Bicol, Western Visayas, Negros Island, Central Visayas, and Caraga. As of November 11, the death toll hit 232, with 112 reportedly missing and 532 injured.
Frequent natural disasters often lead to a large number of casualties. Among all these disasters, typhoons impose significant threats to human lives because of their high occurrence and destructive power.
Therefore, a reliable statistical description of the hazard factors is important in gaining insight on storm surge forecasting or early warnings and risk assessments.
The key to a successful risk assessment is the selection of hazard factors and the corresponding probability analysis of them.
Weather forecasting has dramatically improved over the past decade because of advances in theoretical mathematics and statistics. Innovative mathematical and statistical models constantly improving approaches toward integrating data, efficient computing, and expanded data collection. A variety of new and improved instruments increase accuracy in assessing the current state of the weather system, which helps in understanding tomorrow's weather and also help communities to better prepare for weather events.
The language of mathematics is then critical for developing finer discretizations and implementing them in numerical weather prediction models. These prediction models are collections of equations that describe weather patterns and depend on computer simulations to find approximate solutions. Mathematics allows for explanation regarding the variety of tracks of typhoons and in describing the trajectories of the typhoon eye at the equilibrium state that relates to the conservative phase of the typhoon dynamics using the Navier-Stokes systems.
Moreover, the stochastic process theory can describe the number of typhoons occurring locally in the time domain. This mathematical evidence has been provided to prove that the number of typhoons during a certain period can be described by using a stochastic process model.
These systems and processes are among the many pieces of evidence that mathematics extends toward understanding weather prediction, which helps in disaster preparedness and responses. In short, these mathematical instruments are objective. They're built on reliable systems to stimulate, predict, and detect potential hazards before they happen. If we use the results properly, they can give us a solid scientific basis for early preparations and risk assessments.
In the Philippines, disaster preparedness has never been more urgent. With stronger typhoons, worsening monsoon floods, and rapid urbanization, the government has dramatically expanded its efforts to prevent catastrophic flooding nationwide.
These programs reflect a national commitment to long-term resilience, but they also reveal a deeper structural challenge, ensuring that large-scale disaster preparedness programs are implemented honestly, efficiently, and free from corruption. National initiatives since 2022 show unprecedented scale and ambition. Flood control budget surged from 90 billion pesos in 2020 to 244 billion pesos in 2024. With 303 billion pesos proposed for 2025 representing roughly a third of the DPWH's total expenditures. By 2026, about 250.8 billion pesos remains dedicated to flood projects alone.
To 2025, ganyang kalaki ang inyong kontrata.
These funds support a wide range of structural and non-structural measures.
Dams, floodways, and retarding basins in the Cagayan and Pasig Marikina basins. River dredging, embankment strengthening, and desilting efforts from central Luzon to Davao. Pumping station upgrades, spillway tunnels, and channel improvements in Metro Manila, and proven local successes, such as Iloilo's Jaro floodway, which has eliminated major river flooding since completion, or in Marikina City's post-Ondoy program, credited for 0 casualties in the 2012 Habagat floods.
But despite high funding levels and ambitious master plans, flood disasters continue to affect millions of Filipinos. Investigative reports and government audits reveal the other side of the story. Many flood control projects face serious delays non-completion, and irregularities. The Commission on Audit has repeatedly flagged issues. In 2023, the MMDA had 22 of 58 flood projects delayed, amounting to 510 million pesos installed or cancelled interventions. The DPWH had 216 billion pesos worth of delayed or unimplemented projects in the same year. National budget utilization dropped from 73% in 2022 to 58% in 2023, indicating mounting inefficiencies despite ballooning allocations. On July 22, 2025, a barangay health worker named Cristina Padora tragically died in the line of duty. How? When she waded through a waist-high flood to check on medications and equipment stored at the barangay health station, she unknowingly held a metal pole connected to a live wire and was electrocuted. This is not just a simple case of accidental death. It reflects a much deeper issue. The rampant corruption in flood control projects in Bulacan. Flooding in the area has worsened over the years because many supposed flood control projects were substandard, delayed, or do not exist at all despite the huge funding allocated for it. Cristina is not just a casualty of a storm. She died because of a corrupt system failed to protect her. When infrastructure that is expected to protect communities during calamities are faulty, the safety of the people is at risk, turning such preventable dangers into disastrous outcomes.
We can also see the impact of corruption in the aftermath of Typhoon Tino. The typhoon caused massive flooding and high casualties in areas that were supposed to be protected by flood control systems. Its severity experienced in these communities directly tells us the failure of projects that were already budgeted, planned, and declared finished on paper. This typhoon also exposed how flood control projects failed in Cebu, even though the government spent 17.4 billion pesos in the province between 2016 to 2025. The Butuanan, Mananga, Kansaga, and Kokot rivers overflowed rapidly, submerging nearby houses and farmlands.
So what is the correlation between the casualties and corruption?
If we look at the amount of budget allocated for these infrastructures, the severity of natural hazards, and the number of casualties and damages that follow, one thing becomes apparent: corruption kills. It is the reason why these supposed disaster prevention projects are weak, sometimes even non-existent, and why our fellow Filipinos end up losing their lives. Even with a budget worth billions of pesos, why do these failures still occur? Ask the government and DPWH contractors.
It is distressing that people continue to face dangers they should have been protected from. Electrocution during floods, destroyed embankments, overflowing rivers, and submerged homes. We can't solely put the blame on the storm for these reported deaths. They are also caused by the dishonest and ineffective system. The weaker the infrastructure due to corruption, the higher the risk of preventable casualties when natural hazards arise.
However, it is argued that climate-related disasters such as typhoons can lead to widespread infrastructure failure and damage and may not be able to withstand extreme weather events that bring heavy rains and floods, which disproportionately impacts developing countries.
This is the evidence in the ghost projects to which many argue is the cause of the floodings during the recent typhoons.
Engineers design structures using risk analysis budgets that already include a safety margin significantly higher than any historical record of extreme events. Instead of relying solely on the worst storm ever measured, design protocols multiply that baseline by a safety factor that often 1.3 to 1.7 to ensure the structure can withstand loads 30% to 70% greater than anything previously observed. This means that if historical surge or pressure levels were 3 meters, the design would be built for 4.5 to 5 meters, making the engineered capacity intentionally above past extremes. When that design capacity is translated into materials, it becomes specific. Required concrete thickness, minimum comprehensive strength, and a mandated number and spacing of steel reinforcement bars. If these specifications are followed, the structure should retain a substantial buffer even under unusually strong conditions.
However, our investigation shows that the real-world construction did not match the design capacity. resulting in a mathematical deficit large enough to erase the intended safety margin. Thinner than specified concrete sections reduce structural strength nonlinearly, while substandard concrete makes this lower compressive capacity further. The absence of reduction of steel reinforcement drastically weakens tensile resistance, creating points of failure even when loads remain within this limit.
When these deficits are combined, the actual capacity falls far below what the risk analysis budget intended, meaning the structure could fail under loads it was originally designed to survive. Therefore, the collapse is best explained not by the storm surge itself, but by the measurable reduction in capacity caused by the material and construction deficiencies that invalidated the built-in safety margin. Disasters in the Philippines aren't just natural events. They're mathematical symptoms of corruption and poor governance. First, we used approximation and estimation when examining typhoon paths and project budgets. This helped us show how even small discrepancies, like materials that are 10% cheaper, can accumulate into structurally unsafe projects. It proves that failure isn't bad luck, but measurable miscalculation or misuse. Second, we applied mathematical modeling, including simplified versions of typhoon trajectory and flood risk models. These models show that disasters can be predicted and mitigated if engineering and budgeting follow the correct inputs. Third, we use statistics and data analysis to examine historical typhoon frequencies, casualty counts, and budget data. The statistics revealed mismatches, like billions allocated versus the low number of completed projects, and patterns showing that high corruption is linked to high casualties. The data strengthened our argument that the numbers don't lie. Our fourth major concept is budget mathematics and proportional reasoning. We compared allocated versus utilized budgets, calculated percentages of wasted funds, and checked whether P556B in flood control spending produced proportional outcomes. The answer was clearly no, which helped us highlight systemic inefficiency. Finally, we used logic and critical thinking. The reasoning is straightforward. If funds were used properly, then projects should be complete. Projects remain incomplete. Therefore, corruption is occurring. Thus, deductive reasoning helped us respond to defenses like unpredictable weather, showing that these claims don't hold up when tested against evidence.
The failures we've seen were not caused by the storm itself. They were the result of structural weaknesses and compromised construction. Substandard materials, thinner walls, missing reinforcements, these are problems we can quantify, measure, and expose through math.
It is through math, through careful calculations, audits, and evidence-based assessments that we can demand transparency and accountability. Budgets, materials, and designs are not abstract numbers, they are commitments to safety and human lives. Moving forward, the solution is clear. Build structures that match the design strength, verify materials and construction with objective measurements, ensure the independent oversight of every project, and use data and math to hold decision makers accountable.
Storms will always come, but collapses caused by human negligence are preventable. By measuring, monitoring, and enforcing the numbers, we protect our communities and make sure that every peso spent, every wall built, and every project executed truly delivers the safety it promises. Math is not just numbers, it is power. Power to demand integrity, power to demand accountability, and power to save lives.
Masakit isipin na patas ka na lumalaban, nagtitiis, dugot pawis ang puhunan habang may mga walang hiyang nagagawang gawing puhunan ng iyong kahirapan.
Makaguulan tao na hangtod karon wala gihapoy kausaban sa korupsyon. Mas the worst pa hinuon. Moingon na uban ng mga tao nga wala sila interes sa politika kay wala man sila naapektuhan. Mao nganong manhilabot na sila. Nganong musukuhay man daw sila sa gobyerno. Dili ko na dapat kay maingon nga kang terorista. Ikaw nga nagpakawalang bahala ra porket wala ka nagkamanisod. Maong importante ang matematika aron makademand ta og accountability sa atong mga politician.
Diri ka pa ba nauulit? Nasisinara pa utro-utro nga panlimbong ng panguwataabag. Ginihimo ka na nga ututo, ng lurong tapos wari ka lagyapang ginbubuhat. Diri ka naawod ito? Naawod ha kang matuuran nga may dakaaram, pero diri ka lang nanginginan.
Patas na lumalaban ang mga manggagawang Pilipino upang matustusan ang pang-araw-araw na pangangailangan nila at ng kanilang mga bahay. Habang nilulustay lamang ng ibang mambabatas at may pribilehiyo ang buwis na dapat ay para sa mga nag-iiwan.
It's time to stand up. It's clear that we, the youth, have the
man sa tautak. We should use our voice to speak up and change our country for the better.
Gising, matagal ka ng bulag. Panahon na ata na mamulat. Pakiusap, inakayan sigmurain ang hindi mo pagdalo. Nasa ating institusyon, hindi sa kanila. Nasa iyo ang pagbabago, hindi sa kanila. Sapat na ang oras na inilahad sa ating pagpapakitara.
Together with 30 major professional, business, and civil society groups in the Philippines, united as a coalition to advocate for national reform, good governance, and an end to corruption in government public works, we call for an end to the shameful, unabated, continuing excessive corruption in government's public works and other projects.